Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Alison Lagrange, live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin with the top headlines. Leaders of the G7 nations tentatively agree on a plan to safeguard the access to critical minerals essential for their economies amid the growing concerns over China's dominance in the sector. Ukraine claims Russia fired lethal cluster munitions on Kiev in order to kill as many people as possible in civilian areas, in violation of international law. Moscow yet to react to the allegation. Chinese President Xi Jinping meets with Central Asian leaders at a summit in Kazakhstan as Beijing competes with both Moscow and Washington for influence in the resource-rich former Soviet states. The Bank of Japan keeps interest rates steady at 0.5% amid escalating tensions in West Asia between Israel and Iran and the resultant threat of rising oil prices. And the U.S. prosecutors say a California doctor charged with giving actor Matthew Perry ketamine before the Friends star's overdose in 2023 will plead guilty on 4 counts of illegal drug distribution. Hello and welcome. Let's begin with the latest developments in the ongoing Israel-Iran conflict. The air war between West Asia's 2 arch rivals has now entered its 5th day. In the latest, Israel's military said it launched extensive strikes targeting missile and drone sites in western Iran. Explosions and smoke were reported in Iran's western city of Tabriz, which is home to a major Air Force base. The Israeli military also said that it has killed Iran's wartime chief of staff, Ali Khamenei, in an overnight strike in Tehran. The Israeli military says that Khamenei was the most senior military commander and the closest figure to the Iranian supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Meanwhile, the Iranian military says that it destroyed strategic targets in Israel's Tel Aviv and Haifa, using various types of destructive drones in an overnight attack. Moreover, Iran's Revolutionary Guards said they struck a center of Israel's foreign intelligence service, Mossad, in Tel Aviv on Tuesday. As the conflict rages on and fear of a wider war tightens its grip over the region, the Israeli forces asked residents of Tehran to evacuate, warning of imminent bombings targeting military infrastructure in the area. The social media post by the IDF was similar to those regularly directed at Palestinians in Gaza over the past 20 months. It included a map depicting a significant area of the 3rd district in northern Tehran, shaded in red, asking the citizens to immediately evacuate the area. Confirming the evacuation orders, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that the Israeli Air Force now controls the skies over Tehran. Later, Netanyahu also added that killing Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, would not escalate the conflict, but instead would end it. Netanyahu's close ally, U.S. President Donald Trump, has also urged civilians to evacuate Tehran immediately and has slammed Iran for ignoring nuclear deal talks. As Israel ramps up its offensive in Iran, Israeli strike targeted the headquarters of Iran's state television in Tehran on Monday. As per the Iranian broadcaster, the strikes killed at least 3 people. Footage from the Iranian state TV showed the moment multiple Israeli strikes interrupted its live broadcast. As you can see on the screen, the news anchor attempted to continue the broadcast, despite the sounds of explosions, but was finally forced to leave the studio, as a direct hit caused debris to fly through the air and dust to rise. When asked about the Israeli attack on Iran's state television headquarters, Netanyahu said that the state TV was a tool of a totalitarian regime that hides the reality from the citizens of Iran.
This is a tool of a totalitarian regime that hides the reality from the citizens of Iran. It hides from them the actual situation. And of course, this greatly hinders them, this ability to essentially put a mask in front of the people of Iran. At the same time, other channels are also opening, through which Iranian citizens who strive to break free from this tyrannical regime can discover the truth, and that is important.
As Iran and Israel continue to trade blows, the human cost of the conflict is mounting. At least 224 people have been killed in Iran, and at least 24 civilians have been killed in Israel so far, with several others injured and forced to flee their homes on both sides. As Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu urges Iranians to rise against their own regime, the question now is, what options does Tehran truly have left? How can the Ayatollahs preserve their regime while surviving this dangerous conflict? The first is unleashing Iran's ballistic missile. Now, the Israeli strikes have torn into Iran's nuclear sites and wiped out military commanders and more. The Iranian ballistic missiles have left their mark too, hitting Israel's core cities, Tel Aviv and Haifa, hard. Iran claims to have the largest missile arsenal in West Asia, with thousands of ballistic missiles of varying ranges and speeds in its arsenal. So far, several Iranian missiles have slipped past Israel's famed Iron Dome defenses. And unless Israel wipes out Iran's ammunition stockpiles, Tehran could keep raining rockets for weeks. But Israel claims it has already crippled Iran's missile strength, destroying as much as a third of its surface-to-surface launches, meaning that Iran may soon find itself dangerously short of firepower. And that pushes Tehran into a new strategic corner, to avoid provoking direct U.S. military intervention at any cost. Now, President Donald Trump insists Washington is not party to this war, but he has warned that any hit on U.S. assets, military bases, embassies, will draw severe consequences. A joint Israeli-U.S. attack could destroy Iran's most well-protected nuclear facilities, giving Israelis a far stronger position. Now, the third option on the table is the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, a critical oil transport route in the region, which is seen as the lifeline of the global oil trade. Around 70% of Asia's crude and refined products pass through this tight choke point, linking the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman. It's no exaggeration. Closure here would rattle the global oil trade, especially for the energy-hungry Asian giants. Iranian state media claims Tehran is toying with the idea of closing the strait for global oil tankers. If it happens, market panic could force global powers to push hard for an end of fighting between Israel and Iran. Which brings us to Iran's fourth card on West Asia's strategic table, using a rise in oil prices as a bargaining chip in its conflict. Now, the mere threat of Hormuz's closure has sparked the biggest single-day oil price jump in 3 years. Reports say if the conflict escalates, the oil prices could spiral as high as $120 per barrel, even higher than the shock spike seen after Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. And the fifth, and possibly the final option on Tehran's table, it is to wait for Donald Trump to offer a peace deal, a lifeline to end this war without losing face. Western reports suggest that Tehran wants quiet talks with Washington, a back-channel escape to preserve their regime and survive. And US President Trump, he's open to the idea.
Iran should have signed the deal.
If it would help bring Iran to the negotiating table, would you guarantee that the U.S. would not get involved militarily?
Well, I think Iran basically is at the negotiating table. They want to make a deal. And as soon as I leave here, we're going to be doing something. But I have to leave here. I have, this commitment. I have a lot of commitments. I have a commitment to a lot of countries, including the UK, where we just signed our deal.
So, will Iran fight on, choke the oil flow, or cut a secret deal with Washington? One thing's clear, both time and missiles are running out fast for Tehran. And as the Israel-Iran conflict enters day 5, the Kremlin watches these developments with growing unease. Fears are now mounting in Moscow that Iran, which is one of Russia's last and most important strategic allies in West Asia, may be on the back foot in its conflict with Israel. Israeli strikes deep into Iran's cities, targeting energy hubs and manufacturing zones, are reportedly triggering panic in the Russian security establishment. The reason? Moscow's deep reliance on Tehran, a relationship that has been crucial since the Ukraine war began. In Moscow, Russian experts linked to the Kremlin reportedly say the situation in Iran is moving in a, quote, very dangerous direction. Others agree the Iranian regime may be far more brittle than previously believed. Now, senior Russian analysts linked to the Kremlin also reportedly add that if this conflict triggers regime change in Tehran, the next government is unlikely to be as pro-Russia as the current one. Such a scenario could come as a second blow to Moscow in the region. After losing Syria to its new interim leader al-Jilani last December, following the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime. But in Iran, Russia's stakes are higher. Iran has become indispensable to Moscow's war strategy in Ukraine. It has supplied Moscow with drones, missiles, and military hardware, helping to plug critical gaps as Western sanctions bite. The two countries signed a strategic partnership in January, but stopped short of a formal military alliance. With the Iranian regime now under Israeli fire, that agreement is facing the test of time. Given Moscow's need of cooperation with Tehran amid war in Ukraine, there is more trouble. For now, Moscow enjoys a few short-term gains from this conflict. Oil prices have spiked, spurring Russia a fresh pump of cash. Higher energy prices mean billions of extra dollars, helping Moscow to keep its economy stable despite its war in Ukraine. And with the US scrambling to shift missile defense systems toward Israel, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, Kiev could see Western military aid dry up. For now, Moscow may gain in oil and from the distraction, but strategically it fears that the Israel-Iran battle may cost Russia far more than it wins. The biggest potential loss? A weakened anti-US alliance in West Asia. The next moves in Tehran, Tel Aviv, and Washington could reshape long-time Russian influence in West Asia. And for our last story, let's turn our attention to India. Following the deadly crash of the Air India flight in Ahmedabad, the Boeing aircraft have come under scrutiny yet again. In the latest, an Air India flight from Delhi to Paris has been cancelled. Air India has also cancelled its flight from Ahmedabad to London, citing operational issues. According to the Air India website, the flight was supposed to be a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner. Now, this comes days after the horrific crash of the London-bound Air India flight, which was also a 787-8 Dreamliner and flying the same sector. The flight crashed seconds after takeoff, killing at least 270 people. In another latest incident, an Air India flight traveling from San Francisco to Mumbai via Kolkata also suffered a technical snag. Passengers were deboarded during a halt at the Kolkata International Airport. The flight reportedly had a problem in the left engine. Over the past few days, as many as 3 other flights involving Boeing 787 Dreamliner aircraft returned to the port of departure. Now, this seems to be a precautionary reaction to the first ever crash of a 787 aircraft in Ahmedabad. One of those was a Hong Kong to Delhi Air India flight that returned soon after taking off. Air India said that the flight was turned around because of a technical issue, but gave no further details. In a similar incident, on the 15th of June, a British Airways Boeing 787-8 from London's Heathrow, which was headed to Chennai, returned to London soon after takeoff. The captain apparently reported a flap adjustment failure, and the aircraft had to dump fuel ahead of landing in London. In the third case, a Hyderabad-bound Lufthansa Airways Boeing 787-9 aircraft from Frankfurt had to return to base because of a bomb threat. Now, the Ahmedabad incident has sparked a flurry of activity both in India and internationally, as authorities scramble to determine the cause and to implement solutions. India's Directorate General of Civil Aviation, or the DGCA, initially considered a complete grounding of all 787 Dreamliners. However, it ultimately opted for enhanced inspections of all of these aircraft. Of 33 such aircraft in Air India's inventory, the process has been completed in as many as 22 aircraft. This situation puts the spotlight firmly on the Boeing 787 series. For its part, Boeing emphasizes the aircraft's extensive track record, stating that as of the 30th of April, the plane has carried 1 billion passengers this year. Globally, there are over 1,100 aircraft of the 787 type in service with airlines. However, this isn't the first time the Dreamliner has faced scrutiny. The entire 787 fleet was grounded in 2013, just its second year of service, due to heating problems with its lithium-ion batteries. After extensive investigations and equipment replacements, the aircraft was eventually cleared to resume operations. Yet, similar battery overheating issues re-emerged in 2014 and again in 2017. These latest problems surface at a critical time for Boeing. The aerospace giant has been working hard to salvage its image after the widespread issues with its 737 MAX aircraft. Now it remains to be seen how Boeing faces the latest crisis. And that's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.